Hey, welcome to this beginner art course, the series in which I break down art theory and practice into easy to digest bite-sized chunks. I'm Aaron and you're watching episode 1. I'm going to be talking about learning, what it is, how it happens, the challenge, and how to do it better. This lesson is going to be much less about the art and more about the artist, so just sit back and enjoy for a few minutes. Learning is the acquisition of knowledge or skills through study, experience, or being taught. So this can be theory, both learned and expressed linguistically, or practice, where a skill is repeated over and over until it's in muscle memory, or that is to say that it's familiar and the brain is efficient enough at the thing to do it without thinking. There are studies that show that even just visualizing a skill can be as effective as physical practice. I'll leave a link in the description below. Let's have a look at what actually happens in the brain. This image is not to scale and it's heavily simplified, but the important parts about the brain to think about are the neurons. They're made up of the cell body with the nucleus. The cell body has coming off it little branch-like structures called dendrites which receive the signal. To the rear of the neuron is a tail called the axon. This finishes with more branches called the axon terminal, and insulating the axon are glial cells called the myelin sheath. Now, the impulse enters at the dendrites, travels across the cell, down the axon and out through the axon terminal to the next neuron. In reality, the neurons are very nearly touching one another, terminal to dendrite. The myelin sheath acts to insulate the neuron, preventing charge from leaking out. This means with more insulation, the neuron is more efficient at transferring the signal. And when you repeat a thought or action, the myelin thickens and makes the neuron more and more efficient. This is why practice, and even imagined practice, is so important. As the myelin sheath thickens, less electrical signal leaks out from the axon, and therefore less electrical signal is required in the first place for the same signal to pass through, and therefore our brains require less energy to perform a specific task the more it is practiced. The greatest obstacle to learning is pride. I know how, or I should know how. With one hand it stops you from practicing, and with the other it makes you feel ashamed for being less able than you thought. It doesn't matter how good you are at what you do, you are going to start off bad at what you don't do. Just by virtue of practice, but that's good, that's exciting. All of the things that you think you can't do because you perceive yourself to be bad at them, you can become good at through research and practice. It's okay to be at whatever stage you are at, and it's so important to let yourself try things and to be bad at them. It's so easy to judge yourself against people who have drawn every single day of their adult life, and to judge yourself with the same visual sensitivity that you would use to assess any artwork. But what you have to bear in mind is that you only see the images that people allow you to see, the things they're proud of, whereas you see every mark you make, however finished or unfinished that may be. It can take a lot of being bad to be good at something, and even then, good and bad are entirely subjective. Don't let pride or shame stop you from progressing in your life. I'm so glad that you're here watching this video now, because it means that you're accepting that you want to improve at something, and that's the most important part of learning. The acknowledgement that you want to do it in the first place. I want to talk about practice just briefly, because Draw with Jazza pretty well said everything I want to say in his video, How to Practice. Click the card on screen now or the link in the description to check out his video. Just to summarise, he talks about innate, inspired, and developmental practice. Innate practice is a practice that happens just by virtue of doing what you were doing. So, for example, if you're doing a figure drawing with charcoal, you will be practicing your sensitivity with that medium, even though your actual reasons were to practice hair. And then there's inspired practice. This is the most fun, and it's the one that feels least like practice, but it's when you feel so enthused and excited by something that you go and create a whole load of work just off the back of that inspiration. This one's always exciting, because it might be that you just saw something or you had an incredible idea and you just want to go and make as much work as possible. You have this sort of limitless well of creative potential, but at the same time it really can dry up very suddenly. You can cultivate inspiration in a few ways, so if you want to find out more about that, go and check out Jazza's video. Lastly, developmental practice is when you're consciously working on developing a specific area through practice, for example a specific medium or subject study. This one seems like it's going to be the most boring, but it's the most powerful kind of practice. Powerful because you can do it consistently, and because it allows you to execute the work that you want to do when you do feel inspired. One of the worst things for me is being so inspired to work and then going and opening a sketchbook only to find that I'm completely out of practice with line work or using watercolours. It just destroys my inspiration. That's why developmental practice is such a good tool, and it's something that should be an ongoing thing throughout your artistic career. I'll leave a link in the description to the original video, so definitely go and check that out, and indeed his whole channel. So finally, if you're here watching this video, then there's a chance that some of you feel like you can't draw. Before you can learn to draw, it's important to recognise that you can do it. It's important to recognise where that self-doubt is coming from, the criteria with which you judge yourself. Acknowledge it, and allow it to pass. No one is good at anything without practice, and it only takes very little practice to get ahead of most people in a certain area. The key to maintaining your practice is to be able to see progress while at the same time bringing up your hand skill efficiently to the point that drawing is enjoyable just for the act of drawing, of seeing the things that you can create. At that point, your hand skill is producing work as good as or better than expected, and that's the point to be aiming for. You should keep as many of your drawings as you can, because when you're feeling lower about your ability, it's really empowering to be able to go back and look at all of the drawings, maybe look at drawings done over the space of a few weeks, and see how you've progressed, how you've developed as an artist. That in itself can be quite inspirational too, even just to get you back into drawing and using your hands again. Just to end this one, I want to show you some exercises that will help free up your hand and help you with making drawings that maybe don't feel so stiff or constrained. It's very easy to ignore this step, and I do quite a lot where I forget to warm up. I forget to loosen up my hand and end up with these really stiff looking drawings that just haven't really got that little something. So I just wanted to put a few of these little freeing up exercises out there, so that you can do this for 2, 3, 5 minutes before a session. Even if all you do is this, it will help you develop a sensitivity for the medium that you're working with. That's it for this one. I hope you've enjoyed it. If you have, give it a thumbs up, leave a comment, hit that subscribe button, and thanks for watching. Have a great day.